Hey everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of The Fall of Citrine, an original piece written by me, Stacey Holt. Artwork was by my good friend, SweetKryzaan. As you already know, some stuff may not be suitable for all ages, so beware. As for my voice actors, Ray will be voicing Lena, SakuraSchwein will be voicing Kacy, Ramen in a Cupboard will be voicing Corbin, Jimmersive will be voicing Kade, Walker will be voicing Isaac, and I will simply just be the narrator. Please give a look to all the links below at everything my voice actors have done. Like, they're amazing. Anyways, back to the story. Chapter 2.
Hey, you two. I'm glad you can make it.
Corbin said, smiling. He waved them inside without another word.
Ignore the mess. Everyone is kinda trashing the place. The maid will clean it up tomorrow, so don't worry about it. Over here, we have the kitchen. We have a lot of different mixed drinks, beer, soda, and a whole lot more.
He said, motioning as they all went by. The tour ended as they entered the backyard. People were packed around his hot tub and pool, which took up the majority of the yard. But he had chairs lined around the yard for people to sit on while they weren't swimming.
I'll be going to get a drink. I'll be back in a few.
Kacy walked off toward the kitchen, leaving Corbin alone with Lena.
Have fun, you two.
Kacy smiled with a wink. Lena turned and saw Kacy smirking just as she entered the house. The air was thick with silence as Corbin turned to Lena.
Would you like to get in the hot tub?
Corbin asked with pink starting to resonate on his cheeks. Lena turned her head slightly, not looking at him directly.
I'm sorry, I didn't know there was going to be swimming involved. I don't have anything to wear.
She spoke softly. Just then, a voice was heard from the hot tub.
Take it off! It's called skinny dipping, sweetheart!
A man yelled. Both Lena and Corbin swung their heads around to see who was yelling, but it was unclear because of how many people were around or inside of the hot tub.
I better go see what Kacy is doing.
Lena stuttered, trying to come up with a reason to get away from that awkward situation. Lena started to walk away, but Corbin grabbed her arm.
Don't go. I want you to meet someone. I think you're going to like him.
Corbin said with a serious, yet friendly tone. Lena turned her head back around to see Corbin, and his hand dropped from her arm.
My parents invited him here yesterday, and I had an interview with him to see if I would be a good candidate for his private institution. He is the headmaster there. Unfortunately, he doesn't think I'm a good fit. I know you're hardworking and want to go to college. I think you should meet him. Maybe you will be a better fit.
Corbin said, smiling genuinely. Lena's mouth dropped. She nodded as fast as she could. He took her hand and led her to the house. As a flush crawled up her face, Kacy heard the door open and shut a few seconds later. She rushed to see who it was and saw the outline of Corbin and Lena going up the stairs. Kacy's mouth dropped as she and almost all of the other girls saw them as well. Kacy looked around as all the shocked faces on the girls were turning into furious, outraged ones in mere seconds. Corbin knocked on a door, a few doors down from the stairs.
Kade, are you awake and dressed?
Corbin asked, looking back at Lena and giving an awkward expression.
Kade?
Lena thought.
He is already on a first-name basis with the headmaster or owner of a private institution? These rich kids get a lot of perks. Also, why is the headmaster at a high school party? This is a little weird. I'm getting weird vibes.
Footsteps were heard from the other side and seemed to draw closer. Corbin let go of Lena's hand after realizing he had grabbed it, causing them both to get a little flustered. They both backed away from the door, a little awkwardly as someone opened it.
Yes, Corbin. What do you need?
A man with short, spiked-up black hair stood in the doorframe, smoking a cigarette. He looked more like an older college student than a headmaster. Kade was 28 years old, around 6 feet tall. He wore a white tank top and black sweatpants. From the looks of it, he seemed to be very comfortable in Corbin's house. His eyes, however, seemed to cut through ice. They were cold, but the most striking thing about his appearance was the color of his eyes. They were bright yellow, almost electrifying.
Was he wearing contacts?
Lena looked down and noticed that he had a sleeve of tattoos on his right arm.
I know you interviewed me yesterday, but I would like to know if you would consider my friend.
Corbin asked as his eyes drifted from Kade to Lena. He looked behind Corbin and nudged him out of the way. Kade took a step closer and Lena smiled nervously. His eyes seemed to stare into Lena's soul as she stared back at him. She soon turned her head away from him because of the awkward silence that surrounded them. Since Lena was now closer to Kade than Corbin was, she could smell the alcohol in his breath.
Corbin, please leave.
Kade spoke, not taking his eyes off of Lena. Lena watched as Corbin did what he was asked without a single word. Lena wanted to ask Corbin not to leave her side, especially with a drunk man in front of her, and she was already feeling weird about the situation. Why did Corbin leave so quickly to begin with? Does Corbin trust Kade that much?
Now that we're alone,
Kade began.
come into my room, and I want to show you.
Before he could finish his sentence, Lena sprinted down the hallway and down the stairs, feeling uneasy about being alone with the random stranger. Kacy saw Lena dash out of the house and followed close behind her. Lena didn't stop running until she reached her front door. She unlocked it and slammed the door shut behind her, out of breath. She finally caught her breath just as loud bangs on her front door startled her. She let out a quick scream.
Who is it? Go away!
She screamed.
It's Kacy! Lena, are you okay? Let me in!
Kacy asked, still banging on the door. Lena sighed and opened the door to let her friend inside. Before closing the door again, she looked around the street and porch to make sure no one was watching or following them.
What's up with you? I saw you go upstairs with Corbin. He came down, then you sprinted out the front door. Did he do something to you?
Kacy asked worriedly. Lena shook her head as she went and sat on the couch, still trying to process what had happened. Kacy followed concerned and sat down beside her friend.
Corbin introduced me to a headmaster from a private institution. At first, I was super excited, but it turned weird extremely fast. Corbin called the headmaster by his first name. He called him Kade. The man comes out of the room, I'm assuming it's his bedroom, and he reeked of alcohol and cigarettes. He doesn't even look old enough to be a headmaster. He asked Corbin to leave. Then Kade asked me to go into his room with him. Alone!
Lena yelled.
That's messed up. Was he flirting with you? He might have been wanting to take advantage of you. He probably assumed you were drunk since it's a party after all.
Kacy said. Lena shrugged and grabbed the remote. She then clicked the TV on, while Kacy grabbed a blanket from a nearby chair and threw it over both of them.
I'm just glad it's over with. Corbin did hold my hand, and we would have gotten in the hot tub together if I would have known he wanted to swim.
Lena smiled while blushing as she got up to pop some popcorn. As the microwave beeped, Lena pulled the popcorn bag apart and dumped it into a large bowl. She then added a sprinkle of salt on top. Kacy smiled and gave her a look she knew too well. Lena knew she meant she wanted the details about everything that happened in more clarity. Lena laughed as she handed Kacy the bowl as she got herself comfortable under the blankets. Two girls continued to talk and giggle as the time seemed to fly by. The following morning, there was a loud bang on the front door. The loud noise only woke Lena up, however. She turned over and saw Kacy spread out on the couch with her on the other end. She was completely knocked out.
I wonder who could be knocking this early. I guess it could be Kacy's parents. We forgot to tell them she was staying over at my house last night.
Lena thought. Lena threw the blanket off of her and stood up. She walked over to the door and looked behind the curtain to see a tall shadow that stood on the porch. She took a glance through the peephole to get a better look at the shadow without being noticed. Her eyes grew wide and she tried to scream, but nothing came out. She quickly grabbed Kacy's shoulder and shook her as fast and hard as she could.
What is it, Lena?
Kacy groaned. Kacy opened her eyes and saw how scared Lena was. Lena pointed to the door as she held her hand to her mouth, trying not to make any noise. Kacy threw the blanket off and tiptoed over to the door. She peered through and saw a tall man.
Who is that?
Kacy whispered.
It's Kade.
Lena whispered back in a raspy voice.
How did he find out where I live?
Corbin probably told him. Let me talk to him. I'll tell him I live here and to get lost.
Kacy smiled with a wink. Lena went and sat on the couch, wrapping her blanket around her body waiting for what was about to happen. Kacy swung open the door, and the man looked down in surprise.
You aren't Lena, right? Do you know where Lena is?
Kade asked, confused.
Who are you? I should be asking you that question. You're on my porch.
Kacy said, irritated.
My name is Kade Revne. I'm from the Institution of Academic Alteration. I wanted to speak with Lena about a full-ride scholarship to the Institute.
Kade said politely.
Do you know where she might be?
How dare you? You're just a creepy-ass man who is trying to abduct teens. Get off my porch!
Kacy screamed. Kade looked at her confused. He peeked through the door and saw Lena peering over the couch at him. But once they locked eyes, she ducked down to where he couldn't see her any longer.
This is not your house, young lady. I need to speak with Lena Bright.
Kade insisted. Kacy bit her lip in frustration and decided to slam the door. Before she could, Kade grabbed the door and peered down intensely at her.
Last night must have seemed inappropriate without the proper mindset about the institution. I would like to sit down and have a cup of coffee while we discuss Lena's scholarship. And possibly yours as well, Kacy Knox.
Kade walked past her and sat down in a chair near the couch. Lena watched as the arrogant man walked into her house as if he owned it. Lena attempted to reach for the phone. Kade looked at both of the girls and how frightened they both were. He sighed and rubbed the bridge of his nose out of frustration, then lit a cigarette.
Please don't call anyone, Lena. I'm not here to hurt you. I didn't mean to worry you.
Kade said as he blew out a puff of smoke.
I am here because I want you both to attend my institution.
Lena's eyes widened. She turned to look at Kacy, who was still behind the couch. She was speechless.
I don't believe you! Stop smoking in here and get out of my house!
Lena yelled, standing up from her couch. Kade smiled and started laughing, which made Lena and Kacy turn to look at one another. They both shrugged, and then turned back to Kade. Lena gasped as she saw his piercing gaze directly in front of her face. She didn't even hear him move from his chair.
Okay, Blondie. Do I need to prove myself so you will calm down?
Kade glared. Lena's mouth wouldn't move. Her entire body froze in place.
Here. These are my credentials, as well as some paperwork for the scholarships,
Kade said, placing the papers next to Lena on the couch. He sat back down in his chair while blowing another puff of smoke, ignoring their request for him to stop smoking. Kacy walked over and grabbed the documents, while Lena was still glaring at Kade. Kade smirked and blew out another puff of smoke as the sounds of papers were being flipped. Kade relaxed in the chair, smirking to himself. Kacy turned and looked at Lena with bright, glistening eyes. A smile started to blossom on Kacy's face as she compared the documents to the information she found on her phone.
He really is the owner of the Institution of Academic Alteration. He has papers for you to sign as well. It says you get a full scholarship too!
Kacy smiled, excited for Lena. Lena looked back at Kade, who still sat in the chair, blowing another puff of smoke.
That's not all, Kacy Knox. You too can get a full scholarship to my institution. You will both get your own private rooms. We have plenty of rooms at our school, so you will not need to have roommates like other colleges or universities.
Kade stood up and walked over to the kitchen sink. He then put out a cigarette with the running water. Kacy took hold of Lena's shoulders and pulled her close.
Lena, this is it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We can't give this up.
Kacy begged. Lena sighed and grabbed the documents. She flipped through the pages while skimming the text for anything illegal.
Did I mention I'm leaving to return to the...
Who is Michael?
I have a few more candidates to talk to, if you do not want the scholarship.
Kade returned back to the living room and stood in front of Lena and Kacy.
Headmaster Kade, we need to share these documents with Kacy's parents before we can make a decision.
Lena said uneasily.
I understand. But if you would like to ride back with me today, I need an answer by noon. There are many candidates that would be thrilled to have this opportunity.
Kade smiled as he walked toward the door.
Give this serious thought. This is a life-changing opportunity that will impact you for the rest of your life. It is a truly magical moment.
Kade smirked as he opened the front door and walked outside, shutting the door behind him. A few moments later, the sound of a car could be heard in the driveway, and the sound soon faded into the background.
I will take this paperwork to my parents and see what they say.
Kacy smiled, taking her own papers. Before Lena could say anything, Kacy had already run out of the room and down the street to her own house. Lena sighed and decided to take a shower while she waited to hear from her adoptees. 30 minutes passed and Lena's cell phone rang. Lena took hold of it, still dripping wet from the shower. She had a towel wrapped around her head and another wrapped around her body as she stood in her room. Lena lifted her phone and saw that it was an unknown number. Lena answered it anyway, assuming it was Kade.
Hello?
Lena asked. Silence filled her ear.
Hello? Is anyone there?
Lena asked again. Silence once again returned her question. Lena was about to hang up, but heard someone's voice finally come through.
Hello? Is this Lena?
An unrecognized male voice was heard.
Yes? Who is this?
Lena asked wearily. A few seconds passed. All Lena could hear was muffled, frantic breathing.
Whatever you do not go to Michael's.
There was a piercing scream. Then, the call was dropped. Lena lowered the phone from her ear and looked down at her screen. Lena asked herself. Suddenly, her phone started to ring again, and Lena jumped at the unexpected sound. What a relief. It was Kacy.
Our parents said that this is a real institution. My father has heard of them before. We googled them as well as looked over the documentations Kade gave us. We found out that the institution was in fact founded by Kade Revne. He is 28 years old. He is amongst the youngest founders in the world. My father also said that only talented individuals are accepted inside the institution.
Kacy said.
So he really wasn't bluffing. I really started off the semester great already, didn't I?
Lena laughed.
He probably understands because of the incident that happened last night at Corbin's. Pack your stuff. I'll be over once I pack mine.
Kacy said as she hung up the phone.
But what do I...
Lena asked, but Kacy had already hung up the phone.
Need to pack. Great. I guess I'll pack the necessities and get what I need later on. Or I can always buy it.
Lena started packing her suitcase with a groan. Another 30 minutes passed and a knock on the door was heard. Lena, who was now dressed in a dark blue shirt and some jet black leggings, walked down the stairs to answer the door. She unlocked the door and opened it to find Kacy, as well as Kade, standing beside one another on the porch.
Are you ready, Lena? Kacy told me that you were both eager to attend my institution.
Kade asked, leaning down and taking the suitcase that Lena had brought down and placed it beside the door.
Yeah. There's one more thing I forgot to get before we leave. Also, Kacy, come here. I want to talk to you for a second.
Lena said, grabbing Kacy's arm and pulling her into the house.
I'll put your bags into the car then. Meet me in the car when you two are finished. Please make it fast, because the trip is about 7 hours away.
Kade said as he picked up Kacy's bag from off the ground and started heading towards the car. Lena closed the door and locked it behind them.
What's going on?
Kacy asked, confused.
While waiting on you both, I got this weird phone call.
Lena started.
What kind of weird phone call?
Kacy replied.
The person asked for me. Then I heard them say not to go to Michael's. I don't know anyone named Michael. Also, before the phone was cut off, I heard screams.
Lena said, panicked.
Maybe it was a prank call? Like from the middle schoolers or something. I get them all the time.
Kacy tried to reassure her. She gave her a soft smile and headed towards the door. Lena sighed and grabbed her phone off of the couch.
I really don't think it was a prank. It was a warning.
Lena thought. Lena followed behind Kacy as they both walked to the car. Kacy jumped into the passenger side as Lena slowly made her way to the back seat.
At least I won't have to sit beside him. I can relax while he's focused on driving.
Lena thought to herself as she opened the car door in the back. Her eyes grew wide as she saw that Kade was sitting in the back instead of in the driver's seat.
What are you doing back here?
Lena yelled.
This is my car. The man driving is Jim Connor. He is my head attendant. He takes care of the kitchen staff, housekeeping, and also accompanies me as my driver. He has worked for my family for a very long time. Please, take a seat, Lena.
Kade smirked as he took out a cigarette and lit it, knowing that Lena already didn't like him.
Yes, sir.
Lena said as she bit her lip out of frustration. Lena shut the door behind her, then Jim started the car and proceeded to drive off toward their new home.
Where exactly is this institution that you own located?
Lena asked as she stared out the window. Lena watched as her newly bought house began to fade into the distance, hoping her adopted parents wouldn't sell it or do anything without asking her first.
Well, Lena, have you ever heard of the town called Crescent City? There's a beach near there called Pacific Shores. You've probably heard of that at least. It's near there.
I've only lived in Oakville. I've heard of Pacific Shores. I've always wanted to go there when I was younger.
Kacy chimed in from the front seat. Kade laughed slightly as he blew smoke out of the car window. Lena rolled her eyes, and the wind from the window created a tornado of wind throughout the car, causing both Kacy and Lena's hair to become tangled.
Headmaster Kade, would you mind rolling the window up? Our hair is getting everywhere and it's kind of annoying.
Kacy asked. Kade nodded and rolled the window up, but blew smoke within the car. Kacy started coughing from the smoke, and it made Lena turn her head.
Kade, please, will you stop smoking? It's bothering the both of us.
Lena asked as nicely as she could, but her tone showed signs of irritation. Kade's eyes returned back to Lena as he chuckled.
There's the energy we need at my academy.
Kade smiled as he put the cigarette out. Kade glanced up at the car mirror, and his gaze was met by Jim's. Out of the blue, the car picked up speed, and they were going faster than Lena and Kacy have ever been in a car.
Are you sure this is safe? Jim, can you please slow down?
Lena asked as politely as she could, but fear made her voice a little cracky. Kade started to laugh as he motioned for Jim to go faster.
He's the best driver we have at the academy.
Kade smiled devilishly.
We just passed the cops! They are going to pull us over, Kade?
Kacy screamed in panic.
The cops listen to me. You can say we have an arrangement. Calm down, both of you.
Kade rolled his eyes. Lena and Kacy exchanged looks of horror as they watched as the cop cars they were passing on the highway did nothing. Kacy glanced over at the speedometer as it was going around 130 miles per hour. Kacy closed her eyes and ducked down in the seat. Lena looked over at Kade, who was unaffected by the two girls in the car, who were afraid for their lives. An hour passed by, and the energy and fear that was resonating within the car at first had passed long ago, as they grew accustomed to it.
See? We turned that 7-hour drive into just under 2 hours.
Kade laughed. Lena's eyes grew wide as the car parked in front of a huge building, like a mansion.
This is the institution?
Lena asked. As the car came to a stop, Lena opened the door to take in the sight of their new home. It was aged, but still looked to be well tended, and updated with a new beautiful fountain in the front. The sound of the water falling down each level of the fountain resonated within her ears. Lena closed her eyes, soaking in the warm sunlight as it touched her skin, and she breathed out with a smile. Lena stopped smiling when she saw Kacy smirking at her.
We are living here?
Kacy squealed, turning back to Kade.
This is too beautiful for words. God, how much is the tuition again?
Lena said, looking around.
It's free, as long as everything goes to plan. I hope I'm not wrong in making an investment in the two of you, and your talents.
Kade smirked as he shut the door behind him and nodded his head to Jim. Jim stepped out of the car himself and popped the trunk. Jim took a hold of all of their luggage and started walking into the institution. Kade lit another cigarette and walked to the huge front door of the institution, following Jim. Lena grabbed hold of Kacy's arm and nudged her to follow Kade inside. But she was too focused on the new, unexplored scenery. The front door glided easily open on its well-greased hinges. It didn't make a single creak. The light from inside was so much dimmer compared to the direct sunlight from outside. It was like walking into a darkened cave. The two girls waited a few seconds for their eyes to adjust to the new lighting. Once their eyes readjusted, they both looked around. Pictures of unfamiliar faces looked back at them from the gilded frames on the walls on either side of them as they walked.
Please follow me into the hearth room. It's this way.
Kade took hold of the doorknob and opened the door, motioning for them to follow him. He stepped into the next room, and both girls followed him as room after room was passed. All three of them stopped outside of an unfamiliar one. Kade held the door for Lena and Kacy so they could go inside first. Kacy was still smiling uncontrollably from this almost fairy tale place that was now their home. But Lena still remained suspicious.
You two make yourselves at home here. I need to run to my office and get the correct documents. Please excuse me for a few minutes, ladies.
Kade smiled.
Please, do not leave this room until I return,
he stated before shutting the door and disappearing.
This doesn't seem weird to you? Like at all?
Lena said, crossing her arms looking at Kacy.
I mean, maybe a little bit, but this is a chance of a lifetime for us to attend the same college for free. How can we pass up the opportunity?
Kacy smiled as she played with the knickknacks on the shelves just above the fireplace.
See, that's very weird. Both of us, for free, at a gorgeous institute. He is very annoying, but he isn't bad looking. What if he kidnapped us?
Lena pleaded for her friend to understand the danger that could be just around the corner.
You need to calm down, Lena. Nothing is going to happen. Our parents know we are here. We're safe. Also, would it be so bad if he did kidnap us?
Kacy playfully questioned. Lena sighed and shook her head, trying to get her friend's playful manner out of her mind. Her eyes were glued to the door where Kade disappeared, and Lena took a deep breath.
I have to use the bathroom. I'll be right back,
Lena said, smiling nervously. Kacy turned around and saw Lena acting out of character.
You don't know where it is?
Kacy said, laughing.
You were never good at lying. Hurry and step around. I'll cover for you the best I can.
Lena smiled and let out a breath of relief.
Thanks, Kacy.
Lena quickly made her way to the door and peered down the hallway. There was no sign of life from either direction, so Lena bolted down the hallway as quietly and quickly as possible. As the blurry images of doors were passing her, she soon slowed down as she was coming to an open area. Lena heard voices from that direction and decided to see who was there.
It sounds like other students, maybe. It doesn't sound like Kade,
Lena said to herself quietly.
Did you say Kade?
Lena's eyes shot open as a male voice was heard directly behind her, almost in her ear. Alright, thanks for listening, guys. If you like this chapter, please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps me a lot, and also lets me know how you're liking it so far. I really love reading everyone's comments, so send them my way. Until next time, bye guys!